What's up, everybody? Haven't uploaded in a couple days, but I'm back at it. It's been a super busy week. Today, I kind of want to cover an update on the app and the business, kind of what I've learned this week as far as in my growth with the Lord while trying to run a business and traverse through college, and then kind of an update on the markets. So, update on the app. I have not been able to work on it a lot this week. There's one bug that I've been really trying to knock out, and it's super stubborn. Um, Other than that, it's been a really busy week with college, tests are ramping up. Um, had a big week socially with just like different events on every day of the week. And so it's been a really tiring week. Haven't gotten a lot of sleep. And it's almost a little discouraging because I haven't been able to work on the app a lot. And that's kind of what I love to do. Um, as far as the business goes, just trying to progress the sales and get more awareness. My biggest constraint right now is not enough people knowing about it. Nobody knows about it. And so that's really what I got to hammer and get working on um, for a good while. I have to kind of pull back the reins on working on the product and actually get more people like buying the product. One thing that I've been looking at that's been super interesting over the past week was the idea of creation, and like in Genesis, in the 6 days where God creates something, he follows a system. And it's been super cool to see how consistent the system is over the 6 days, and then how we can apply that to our how we run a business or how we create, even if it's not for creating value for a customer. If it's just like anything you can create, you can follow the system. And like I feel like if it's a perfect God's system for creating something, then like it could be pretty useful for us. And so in Genesis 1, in the 6 days where he creates something before the Sabbath, he has an announcement, a command, a fulfillment, an approval, naming, and a conclusion. And I have my notes written down right here on it. So, for instance, on the first day, there's the announcement, and God said, a command, let there be light, a fulfillment, and there was light, an approval, and God saw that it was good, naming, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And then 6, a conclusion, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. And so it's super cool. You can kind of explore the 6 days and see kind of how that's carried out each day. And then what's interesting is in Genesis 2, when he makes Eve, when he makes the woman, it's almost like, and God sees that. Let me just see if I can find it. Let me just see. But Adam, there was not a helper fit for him. And so that's kind of an observation. And so that can kind of be added on. That can be like the first thing before your announcement, before step 1. And so like an observation is like a problem you see that needs fixing, whether that's something that makes your life easier or something that solves a pain in your life. It can just be an observation, and that's where you find problems that are worth fixing. And then an announcement, and God said, announcement can just be you either telling yourself, praying to God. You can tell friends that you are going to solve this problem or create something. And especially in business, it can kind of hold you accountable. Like you said that you were going to do this, so you can stick to it. A command is kind of like setting goals. which I kind of want to cover in another video, because setting goals is really interesting in the Bible. There's a lot of things on that are covered throughout the scripture. But with the goal, the best practice for a goal is to be input oriented rather than output oriented, because inputs you can control, outputs you can't control. So when you're setting goals, it needs to be an input, and I'll go more in depth into that in a different video. But fulfillment is the work that's fulfilling the goals that you set, solving the problem that you're working on. And approval, looking back, seeing if the goals you set were met, and if you fulfilled what you started to try to fix. Naming is kind of like marketing in a sense. God assigns a name to a concept or a creation that he makes. In the same way, there's branding, where you're associating your company with different concepts. So if you're a luxury brand, you're associating yourself with wealth, old money, high perceived value. That is what your brand is associated with. And in the same way that is the name giraffe is associated with the animal giraffe, your brand has to be associated with something. And that's kind of the marketing of like when you create something, when you create a product. And then conclusion is just kind of looking back on it. Did you solve the problem that you went out to fix? And so that's kind of a cool system that God uses for creation. And so I think if he uses it, we can take one out of his book, and it'd be pretty useful to use in our own like models. So that's kind of been what I've been learning, trying to grow a business for the kingdom. And so I guess a market update. It's been a super interesting week. If you haven't been paying attention to it, stocks have been destroyed. There's a lot of selling pressure and a lot of people taking profits on some pretty sizable rallies, especially in the tech space. What's been super interesting about this downturn, though, is that usually when stocks have a significant downturn over like the span of a couple days or a week, usually the short selling pressure tends to go down because people start taking profits on their shorts, and they start to they see it as like a dip buying opportunity, and to like buy the dip. What's been interesting about this week is that on almost all stocks that I've looked at, short selling pressure has gone up, which means people are extremely fearful about what all the companies are propped up on right now. The whole circular funding with OpenAI, NVIDIA, Oracle, Microsoft all funding each other has been interesting, because Oracle is looking for more funding, and they really are having trouble raising the amount of money, because with what they're trying to raise, there's just not enough like volume or banks to be able to fund something like that. And so it's been super interesting to see kind of the slowdown with Oracle, and it's down a lot. And so that slowdown with Oracle will in turn cause all the other companies that are in that circle together to also slow down, which could be bad for the markets as a whole. It's interesting to see leverage stocks. The leveraged securities for the large dips can also contribute to further downtrends, because how the leverage works is they keep a certain debt to asset ratio, and when it fluctuates more than normal, the ratio kind of gets out of whack, and so they have to buy or sell securities of what they're leveraging to kind of bring that ratio back to like the double leverage or whatever. And so um, when there's a large sell-off, they have to sell securities to bring it back. And so it drives the leverage down. So if it's double leverage, it goes down twice as much, but also they're selling securities, which is adding to the selling pressure to go even further down. So it's kind of like a cycle. And by no means is that controlling the whole downtrend, but is definitely contributing it. And so there's also a new Fed chair, and that'll be interesting to see kind of the policies that we look at and if he bends to the will of Trump and the administration to see whether they kind of remain independent or whether they follow what Trump's been doing. So a lot of stuff to look forward to next week. That's kind of it for me. Still trying to get comfortable in front of the camera, putting myself out there. Yeah, I'll try to post more often. I need to start posting more. Yeah, that's all I got.